I remember not being particularly sympathetic and laughing heartily as he walked into a pole. Anyway, we put some Ziziphus on his forehead. He said it did make a sort of tingling feeling, and so maybe it was doing some healing. To say it reduced the throbbing pain a great deal. So not a lot. I mean, you do get mild narcotics out here, like the wild ducker, which is a kind of an annual plant, beautiful red flowers. Apparently you can have a go at the roots there, and that'll give you a mild narcotic effect, which probably also will reduce pain. And likewise, one of the plants that they eat in East Africa quite a lot and up into the Middle East is a plant called Catha edulus, or kat, K-H-A-T, and you can find that sometimes here. It's a slightly different variation, but if you chew that, I imagine if you were in a lot of distress, it might reduce that slightly. So otherwise, not a great deal of discipline lurking around. That said, some of the bark apparently has what they call, I think, salicylic acid. Some of the bark of various trees out here, which is an active ingredient in aspirin. And so if you knew how to extract it and you had a chemistry kit, you could probably make yourself an analgesic. But I think there are very few plants out here that you can just chew to feel better. We're not too far now from the Arathusa boundary, and we'll get an update as soon as we get there as to where these lions have gone. The vehicle is still behind us, so we're going to drive a little bit faster. Now Jigger, as many of you will know, has just come back from hospital. Jigger is this vehicle that we drive, a deeply aging lady, and her steering box seems to be fixed, which is marvellous. She used to, it's quite an art to drive at this sort of speed along a road like this, because she would suddenly decide that she wanted to go south or north, and you'd have to correct without swinging the back out. And she's certainly listing a little bit port and starboard as she does, but not anything like as badly as she was. I'm going to try and call these guys in Arathusa now to see if I can't get an update. Station Arathusa, do you copy? I'm going to pick us up on this radio. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to let Ephraim go past us. His radio is functioning a bit better, and I know he's got some guests that we probably want to see those lions. So let's just stop. We've got a bit more time than they do. I'm going to stop here, let him go past, and get an update from him, and he can then tell us what's going on. Let me just stop here and try and get an update from him. He's coming past us now, because it's pointless us just kind of driving in there and bungling about if we can't hear what's going on the radio. It's very embarrassing driving into a sighting and not knowing what's happening. Let's just try and get him to stop. Aye, iko minjani? Tingala tikwi. Okay. Tingenile la. Okay. Utativona.
Yeah, this is a power line.
Okay, now radio yame aitiri gas. Guna vangat kwala. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Inta lands away.
All right.
Okay.
Ciao. Bye.
Right. So Ephraim will go in there. He's got a better radio. He'll be able to tell us how many cars are there. We're just going to drive slowly in there for now. They're not far from where we want to. They're not far from the boundary, and they're also not too far south. So I think we've probably got a good chance of seeing them. So I don't think we're going to rush, because what I don't want to happen is for us to go in there and have to then leave immediately because there's a whole lot of other vehicles trying to get in there. So let's just take a leisurely jaunt along the road. So lots of comments on the where Home James Don't Spare the Horses comes from. Lisa, I think you said it was Clint Eastwood. We've had votes for John Wayne. But I'm not convinced that those. So Jeffrey and Austin and RC and X-Ranga, you've come up with a solution to this question, and apparently there was a myth or an apocryphal story, if you like, that Queen Victoria had a coachman at one stage called James Darling, and she couldn't call him Mr. Darling, and so she used to call him James. And sorry about the road. I thought it had an English origin, and apparently she used to then say, Home James, don't spare the horses. Apparently that is a myth though, and that coachmen since the 1600s in Britain had been called James because the aristocracy were too bone idle to learn their real names. So there it is, Home James, don't spare the horses. Quite nice to attribute to old the great white Queen Victoria. Right. Stefan Winterboer, the great naturalist, is now on foot. He's forgiven us for driving over his lion tracks. He's on foot with an interesting bird. While we go to these lions, you go across to him, and I'll see you just now.
Oh, good morning. It's been quite an epic morning for myself and Andrew. We're off here. All right. Please excuse me, I thought that we were off air over there, and things are going crazy here this morning. But good morning from myself and Andrew. We've been on foot tracking a male lion this morning, and what started off as we had absolutely no signal, we ended up a good 1.5 kilometers away from where we started. But nevertheless, let's get the bushwalk on the go this morning. And the first thing that we got to show you is an African. We had to show you was an African cuckoo. All right. So my African cuckoo flew away. What a pity. But nevertheless, I have got something else that I wanted to show you over here. Something that I found. Literally, could anything more go wrong with my walk at the moment? It's the largest ant that we actually found over here, barring a robber ant. So there's just 2 of these guys. They're like so difficult to lose in actual fact because they're about 1 inch long. Let's have a look. He's not under here somewhere. Busy hunting inside here. Andrew's chasing away all my stuff that I wanted to show you here today. Anyway, let's not dwell around too much with what we've lost and go and look for something more. Come with me. What actually drew me to this tree was the fact that I found a violet-backed starling pair. Now, this time of the year, they've come in all the way from the DRC, the Central Equatorial Africa, and they are looking for holes in trees to nest in. And I think that this pair is trying to nest in this tree. And what I want to do is see if I can find them for you, so that I can show you how pretty this bird is. Easily one of the prettiest birds that we have out here. And let me see if we can see him in the tree over here now. As we stopped, I was watching the female was silhouetted against the sky. And they seem to have moved on. How's that for luck? Shows you karma. I mean, One of those things. Male lions that are walking away from us, birds that are flying away from us, ants that I can't find right in the open. Anyway, let's move to a different area. Come with. So you'll notice, for those of you who are joining the walk for the first time, that I do have a rifle. I carry it with me. It's a tool of the trade, so to say. It's basically just a piece of safety equipment. Nothing to concern yourselves over. Myself and Andrew, the last thing that we want to do is get into a position where we actually have to injure ourselves or an animal. It's not what we want to do. We're just out here to enjoy the bush, enjoy being out on foot, enjoy the peace and quiet that comes with being on foot in a beautiful place like this. And we've come into a new area for the walk, actually. Oh yeah, we've got a road, and on the road is a hyena track. And I know that it's a hyena track because of the size difference between the front foot and the back foot. This is and also you can't really see from where you are, but the nails and the back of the pad definitely are not cat-like. When you have a cat, the back of the pad, you'll be able to put a grass blade on, and the track will be basically a perpendicular track. Dogs, cats, or dogs at least anyway, have a track that is slightly skewed to their direction of travel. So cat tracks, if you put a piece of grass on the back of the track, let me show you what I mean by using this track here. Let me just go fetch a piece of grass quickly. I'll come back into your shot now. So if you put a piece of grass on the back of the track, you can see there, you can see if I take another stick and put it in the direction of travel, you get this picture. If it was a cat track and you put it at the back of the track, it would be straight and the direction of travel would be like that, using a stick. Something more like this. So that's how I know it's a hyena without too much detail. Now hyenas here, the more common of the one is the spotted hyena that we find here. They have outcompeted the brown hyena in the Kruger National Park. People have a variety of different theories about it. The more commonly held theory is that because of artificial dams and pans, brown hyena were outcompeted by spotted hyena, well, this brown hyena is an arid area specialist. So in arid areas where Kruger National Park used to put pans, now spotted hyena could come there. Spotted hyena outcompete brown hyena in those areas. Brown hyena had to move on and move to the mountains. They occur fairly close to here, just outside the reserve in actual fact. I'd say probably the closest brown hyena den that I know of is about 30 or 40 kilometers, 30 or 25 miles from here. And is an animal that has eluded me in an almost 20-year career. I've never seen a brown hyena, even though I've tried to work in areas even that have brown hyena present. So it is still one of those things that I have yet to see. I'm just going to move this branch out of the way. An elephant. Oh, here we go. There's a hippopotamus track. Now, there's a hippopotamus foot. I know it's a hippo and not anything. I know it's a hippo and not a rhino, who would have a similarly sized foot, because a rhino has 3 toes and this hippo has 4. There's one there, one there, one there, one there, and the back of the foot here. You have a hippo. A lion, even a big male lion, his tracks would be fitting inside there for the biggest male lion, about as big as my hand. So that's a big male track, is about as big as my hand, like that. That's his front foot. His back foot will be about that big. And that's what Andrew and I have been tracking the whole morning, is lion. And Barbara has asked, isn't it dangerous tracking lion on foot? Barbara, yes, it is actually quite dangerous tracking lion on foot. Myself and Andrew had to take it quite carefully through some thick bush areas. What you want to try and do is you want to try and keep your head up the whole time. One of the tricks to tracking is to keep your head up when the whole body is just wanting you to look at the floor and find that next footprint. You've got to keep your head up, and that'll allow you to scan the bush in front of you, look for places where tracks are most likely to be found. You walk there, you have a look at a track, and then you carry on. And that'll allow you also to see these animals that are lying up in shade and lying up underneath bushes, and hopefully allow you to avoid any potential issues. Now, I've been walking on this road a little bit. I just wanted to get into this area here. I think it's a good time for us to walk into the bush. That's exactly what we're here to do, and that's exactly what I feel like doing. This area is well known for its massive termite mounds. And termite mounds, apart from being little universes all of their own, actually attract a lot of animals. They have good species or healthy species of grass that grow on them this time of the year. That obviously in turn attracts a lot of animals that eat grass, which in turn attracts the predators that eat those animals. And quite often you would have witnessed, for those of you who watch the show often, and I know a lot of you do, that quite often you find leopard lying on top of termite mounds. They're waiting there for animals to come and feed up onto the side of these termite mounds, onto the side of these what we call nutrient hotspots. That's what a termite mound actually is. And then they catch them. Now, we're walking around near the crest, and as you can see, we've got a lot of terminalias. This wood here, we have a millipede here, is a very hard wood. You can see, even though it's dead, it's almost impervious to termites, and therefore is used quite often to build houses with and to build kraals with. And on this particular tree, we've got a millipede. See, I'm just getting him. He's busy sucking up some detritus or something that's being caught right up in that little hollow there. They're not carnivorous, they eat detritus, and that means that they eat like compost. And these are the guys, they're like little locomotives. I absolutely love them. They get a little bit bigger than this. As the season goes by, we start seeing other species with black and white stripes on. We even seen some that are red in color. You have ones that don't have these orangey legs, they've got black legs. You can see, quite ticklish. Well, look at the way he's... It's like me, I have a very ticklish back as well.
Because it's hairy still.
Yeah. Now, something that I did the other day that was actually fascinating was show you how this insect sees the world around it, and it was quite an epiphany for me actually. This animal uses those antennae that you see at the end of his head to feel out and taste the area around them. Now what I've done is I've actually licked to the end of this piece of grass. Oh, I've got a very persistent fly. Myself and Andrew are being plagued by them. And what we're going to do is try and get him to taste this. Have a look there. No, he's not wanting to play game today. Always decided that my brand of toothpaste is not conducive to. See how he's busy tasting with those antennae of his, moving his head in that direction. They are like his eyes. Look at that. Epic. And with that, he's busy tasting to see if there's anything there to eat. And have a look. He's zoned in his face. Antennae have gone right to his mouth so that his mouth can find what his antennae have. And I mean, to be honest with you, it's something that's actually incredible to think that they use an appendage like that to see and to generate a picture in their brains. of the world around them, similar to how we use our eyes and our hands and our feet. Imagine if you could take your hand and you could feel here for something to eat. You know, using it, feeling all these crenellations there. I've got something quite soft. Is that something to eat? I'd have to be able to taste with my finger to actually see what's going on, and then to carry on going up here, feeling, where am I going to find the next one, next morsel? I just find it fascinating, these things. Anyway, let's carry on going. So the next thing I want to go and head out towards is that fallen down tree there. They can sometimes be sources of interest because you get a whole bunch of things that like to eat around fallen down logs, the wood itself, all the grubs that the wood generate. It's a good hiding place for trees and for listen to what I'm saying. It's a good hiding place for snakes. So this is a fallen down marula. And there are lots of little hardy holes. Oh, rotten, rotten, rotten. Have a look at this. This was once so hard you couldn't stick your finger into it. And now I can push my finger into this wood, which means that it's had a long time for all these insects that dig these holes to eat the wood. Not a lot of nutrition in wood, as you can imagine, and so what happens is you get lots of grubs living for long periods of time. Oh, here we go, 2 different species of millipede here. Here's that zebra millipede I was telling you about. They're busy eating some wood as well, or some fungus that's growing on this wood. And from millipedes eating fungus to some buffalo drinking some water, James has found something to show you, and so we're going to go over to James and we'll catch up with you when we've got something interesting to show you again. Ciao.
So, an interesting question from Sandra has precipitated you coming across to look at these buffalo drinking out of a puddle. And Sandra, you wanted to know if the animals take advantage of puddles so that they don't have to keep walking to water. There is your answer right there. Yes, they do. And that's often why the herds split up so much during the summer months when there's lots of water around. The herds will split up, elephants and buffalo, because there is so much water in these sort of temporary pans and puddles that we find throughout the bush. You can also see the oxpeckers that have been bathing in the puddle with their kind of buffalo hosts. Lovely sighting here. And they've pretty much denuded that puddle of water, and they're now going to carry on and eat. So definitely much more convenient for them than having to head off big distances to water, especially for these old bulls who don't need to move with the herd, and they will move as little as they possibly can. A magnificent old fellow, those chaps. The one on the road, and he's got a huge boss. The boss is the helmet from which the horns kind of come out, and it protects the head when they're having a big fight. There's an enormous, enormous boss there. Right, we're still waiting to get into the lions. The lions are not far from here. We're just waiting for a bit of a space. So let's go back to Steph. He's got some interesting things to show you, and I will hopefully see you next time with the lions.
Well, you've come up to, you've caught Andrew and I trying to identify a bird that we don't actually know. And although it's going to be a monumental challenge to try and show you what we're experiencing at the moment, the gist of what we're trying to do is identify a tiny little bird making a funny clicking noise. Now, let's sneak up through the bushes over here. We're not sneaking up on anything big. What we are trying to do is sneak up on a bird. Before we do that, we've got some mating millipedes. And if you take a... Millipedes are... Have a look here. This female is obviously letting out some pheromones. And what's happening is she's calling in males from all over the place. But this one's already spoken for. Now, millipedes are actually hermaphroditic. They're both sexes, so depending on what stage they feel like being in for that time period, they'll actually be able to... Yeah, definitely. And the transfer of the reproductive or the sperm basically is done not at the back like you traditionally know, but is done about 5 or 6 segments from the front of the head. And that's why they are wrapped around each other at the front part of these millipedes and not at the back part. So if I can show you on this one, right there, there's a gap there. Oh, there's a gap there. I'm battling to show you here, but there's a gap right there, and that's where the opening is, the reproductive opening. Gonna put him back exactly where I found him. Carry on with his day. And so there, Millipede Biology 101. That bird in the meantime has managed to fly away, which, judging from the luck I've had over the last 10 minutes with birds, is not surprising. But it does leave Andrew and I free to carry on walking. Pachino John has just asked me if we get giant centipedes, or if I've seen a giant centipede. I would say the biggest, I wouldn't call it a giant one, but the biggest one that you get out here is about this long, which is about a foot, maybe just less than a foot, and about as thick as my thumb, which is this thick. Difficult to give you. So about that thick, about as thick as my thumb, and about that long. And they'll come out here in about January, February, when everything's nice and wet and rotting already with the heat and the moisture that's available in our wet season. So they're not giants. I mean, they're not as big as my arm and hunt elephant, but they definitely are big. I'm forcing, let me move this for Andrew to get over this big stump. As you may have noticed, it's just the two of us on this walk, which makes it so special. It's quite an intimate experience going on a walk in the bush, and it's so fantastic to share it with you because it is a world first, and it's something that we're quite proud of, is this live walking safaris. Taken us many months to get right, but nevertheless. Now what I'm busy doing is walking to different termite mounds. And Kathy in New York has asked me, how long are walking safaris generally in the bush over here? Now it all depends on what type of walking safari you're doing, Kathy. If you're just going on a what we guides jokingly call a bumble walk is usually anywhere from an hour to about 2, maybe 3 hours. But you do get wilderness trails as well, where you can actually walk and sleep on the trail, walk and sleep on the trail in scenic areas or at specific locations that you want to go into. I've done both, and which one do I like the best? I suppose it all depends on where you are. I like them both equally. Bumbles are equally as fun as wilderness trails. They each have their downsides. For instance, bumbles have an ending after 3 hours or an hour, and wilderness trails can sometimes be quite difficult. They can be quite a challenge. But yeah, they each have their benefits far outweigh their negatives. Now, I mentioned a bit earlier that we are heading from one termite mound to another. Got another big termite mound here. in the middle of this monkey thorn thicket. And you can see how these termites have really cleared this area over the dry season. Oh, look at this. Only about 10% of this termite mound actually sticks out of the ground. Now let me go and give you an idea. Andrew is standing at the edge of the termite mound. I'm going to walk to the center of the termite mound. Give you an idea of how big this termite mound actually is. This is the middle of the termite mound. Where you standing is the end of the termite mound, and what you can actually see is only about 10% of the total size of this thing. So no wonder they've managed to clear the grass away almost completely. And what they do that for is they grow fungus on the grass and then they eat the fungus. And the termite mound is actually just one massive air conditioning unit or greenhouse. Got noises happening off to our right hand side. I don't think anything to be concerned about. What I will do is I see another big termite mound, like one that you can actually come and join me on rather than just watching me climb. Let's go and stand up there so we can see what's making this noise. Lots of elephant dung around, lots of good leafy trees to eat. Whoa, whoa, go, 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 go. If you saw the position that Andrew bent in to get you that shot and to keep me in shot, it deserves a hand clap, absolutely. He bent almost completely backwards. Now, we're heading to this termite mound here because it's nice and flat on the top, and it also gives us a chance to invite you to join me at the top of a termite mound and to scan the area around us. Now, as you can see, because the terrain is fairly flat, we don't actually see too far, but it does give us a height advantage, and that not only helps with being able to look at the bush, but it also helps with being able to hear and get a direction of where certain sounds are coming from. And that's basically what I wanted to do, was just take some time to listen to the bush and listen what that noise is that's coming from there. Now, I know that you know that James is waiting to get into a lion sighting, and I also know that James has potentially mentioned that we were tracking some lions this morning, and Ramey has wanted to know if a male lion being injured would in any way change its behavior or its demeanor if we had to walk into it on foot. And yes, absolutely, Ramey. There's a few things that change lion behavior. One is being injured, as you quite rightly guessed. The second one is being protective of young or females in a male lion's case, or females in a male lion's case. And another one is food. Lions will protect food from us. Now, I had a tracker many years ago, a gentleman who's unfortunately passed away now, a very close friend of mine, Richard in Duban, who remembers distinctly his grandfather and father going out on foraging, on scavenging journeys to lion in this area. He lived in this area, where they took at least 10 people to go and get meat from a fresh lion kill. So when the herd guys come back and said they'd seen lions on a zebra or wildebeest or buffalo, at least 10 people would go out, chase the lions off, collect some meat, and then come back to camp, leaving the rest of the carcass for the lions. And that's how they used to get meat. Obviously, it's easier when you don't have rifles and vehicles to scavenge rather than hunt your own, especially if you've got to run through the bush with spears and things. So isn't that interesting? But yeah, 10 people, the point I'm trying to make is 10 people or more to chase lions off of a kill, not less than that thing. Now, James is with those lions, and we're going to send you back to James. Enjoy. I'm jealous.
What a wonderful way for you to join us. The beady eye of a Birmingham male lion staring straight down the barrel of the camera just before it goes to sleep. Now, these male lions, there are 4 of them here. 2 of them we can see, obviously. One lying in a position that can only be described as ungraceful, and the other just in front of him. And then the others, another 2 sort of in the bush off to the side, and you can't really see them. Have you got them there, Brian? You can just kind of see tawny hair in the bushes. Now, they will probably lie here, I suspect, for much of the rest of the day, and I think this is where they were calling from last night when we heard them shouting as the sun set yesterday evening after those magnificent storms of rain. I think this is precisely where they were. Maybe a little bit, maybe slightly further to the east of where they are now, but they certainly haven't moved a great deal. They look well fed, they look very healthy, and I'm just sad that they won't. I don't think they're even going to lift their heads while we're sitting here. And it does interest me. I think that other male. Oh, here one has put his head up. Brian, let me move forward a bit for you. I'm just going to quickly talk on the radio. Oh, here we go. High action at the lion sighting. Lions, of course, do a great deal of not much, but it is so impressive to see a large male lion sitting up and standing because their size is so vast. So that chap there that you can see just sort of the back of, and there his magnificent head that comes through the bush. He's having a little graze on the grass, which is not unusual, totally like a domestic animal that sometimes eats grass to line the stomach. They're not feeling so well, or just sometimes to just line the stomach if they're perhaps needing to be a bit more regular than they are. But he stands at the shoulder, probably almost 4 feet, in fact probably at least 4 feet, so pretty tall. And they weigh, like I say, when these guys are fully grown, they're not fully grown yet, you know, at full mass, these fellows will weigh probably 440 pounds. Now, we've had a long discussion, as you know, about lifespan of cats. And the cats, these lions will be lucky to make it past their 12th birthdays. Because they're a coalition of 5, they might live a bit longer than that. And Acadia, you've made the wonderful kind of point that tigers can live up to 26 years in the wild. So that would definitely make them by far the longest living big cat. There's no record of a lion living anything like that long, nor a leopard, nor a cheetah, as far as I'm aware. And Patricia, you've asked an interesting question that I don't think has a simple answer. Well, it does have a simple answer, but it does bring into question where that answer comes from. So, you have said, back to sleep. You've said, what kills a lion in captivity You know, why do they only live for 20 years? I'm just trying to hide from the sun here. What kills a lion in captivity if you know, if in the absence of other predators? And the simple answer is old age. That is what kills them. Well, what is old age? And a lot of people don't realize this, but in basic terms, what happens is that when your cells replicate each other, and I don't know how much biology you remember, but within your cell, in very simple strokes, you've got long strands of DNA, and for your cell to copy those strands of DNA must be copied, and your body makes slight errors when it copies the DNA, and especially on the ends. The ends of the strands tend to have errors more than the middles. Now, as those errors multiply, so the effects on your ability to be as young and frivolous as you once were, so that ability disappears. So old age, basically, I mean, there are probably many other contributing factors, but is your body making mistakes, that copying system, those errors multiplying on top of each other again and again until, you know, your legs don't work quite as well as they used to work. You get a bit stiffer, your hip probably may need to be replaced every so often, and that's mainly because of the errors that your body is making in the replication of its DNA. So that's what old age is for a lion like this. So even in captivity, with the best medical help in the world, just like with human beings, a lion will eventually die of old age if it's in captivity. And their lifespan, remember also that none of these animals out here, or very few of them, the elephants being the notable exception, and the buffalo, are able to live beyond breeding age. They're simply not designed to do it. There's no evolutionary reason for a lion that is beyond breeding age to survive in the wild, just kind of using up resources if it's not going to be leaving offspring. So these lions, once they get beyond a certain point, so unlike a human being, so a human female who will go into menopause, what roughly, when is it, 45 to 50 years old, somewhere around there, and then have a very lengthy life afterwards, quite comfortably, without medical help, you know, all things being equal. A lion, as soon as they stop breeding, when they get beyond that breeding age, they decline very rapidly indeed, very fast, and same with a lioness. And so even in captivity that will be the case. They will very quickly get old and die if they can't breed anymore. I hope that answers your question, Patricia. You can spend a little bit more time with these lions. I know that it's not particularly exciting to have them lying about here, but it is nice to see them. Alright, so BJ Price, you've done a bit of research on Down syndrome, and Down syndrome, we had a question about it in lions. Down syndrome occurs in the 21st chromosome in human beings apparently, and lions only have 19 chromosomes. I don't think, BJ, that necessarily means that it couldn't happen on another chromosome in lions, you know, something similar, but yeah, so it does happen apparently with a misreplication on the 20, I think it's an extra 21st chromosome, if I'm not mistaken, with human beings. I think, like I say, you'll find that if there is that kind of a replication in many animals, and certainly perhaps on other chromosomes in human beings, what happens is that the fetus will not carry to term, and the same probably happens with lions. Right, on that note, Steph apparently has a fascinating tree to show you, a dead one, so there must be something truly fascinating there, and you can go and pick his really substantial knowledge base around that tree, and we'll sit here and find out what else is going on in Arathusa.
Every once in a while you get offered a little bit of insight into something that at first glance seems quite trivial, but as soon as you have a look at it a little bit closer, you realize that it's anything but. And this, what I'm sitting on right here, is one of those things. This is very obviously a dead tree. A tree that was pushed over by elephants or whatever the case may be, and was lying on the ground. This is a live tree. And what's happened is this tree has just by chance germinated in the fork of the dead tree, probably due to the fact that a bird sat on the branch and dropped a seed. And as the tree's grown up, it happened to just get big enough to catch the dead stump, and is now in the process of lifting the stump up into the air. Now if we take a step back here, you'll see what I mean. There is absolutely no way that this stump could have fallen over this. And this apple leaf is way too big. Already, it's many years for it not to have picked up this stump. I mean, it's just an absolutely fascinating story here. I know it doesn't look like much at first glance, but what you've got here is you've got a live tree that's picked up a dead tree and is busy carrying it back into the air again. Actually quite amazing. Hope you're enjoying those Birmingham boys. I'm quite jealous that you're getting to see them. Myself and James heard that they were roaring last night. We could hear them. We were making a phone call on an open area right next to the DRC where we stay, and we wondered if they were going to come in this morning. And myself and Andrew were very excited when we found those lion tracks this morning, and even more excited when we heard that they were lying just across the Arathusa boundary, and that James was on his way to show you them. I haven't seen them in what feels like months, and I'm looking forward to hearing James's recount on how big they are, what new scars they've got, are they limping, how's their condition, how has this takeover been for them? Because it's been going on for quite some time now, and as we predicted, it's been probably close to about 6 months now. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but getting there at least anyway. And very soon we're going to be seeing their first babies on the ground, and then the cycle will be complete. I'm looking forward to seeing that. But nevertheless, we're going to carry on with our walk. That is just me yakking on about my own personal preferences. And Steve in California must be looking at the sweat beading off of my brow from this morning's activities, and has asked me how much water do we have to consume versus other animals in the bush. Now Steve, that's a good question, and actually not as easy to answer as what you'd think it is, because we are the world's most capable endurance athletes, and over the biggest temperature range as well. And so therefore we need less water than other animals do over a bigger distance, but on a per day basis we actually need to drink a lot more than some other animals. So to give you an example, an elephant weighing 6 tons will drink 200 liters of water a day and eat a lot of green vegetation, which will also give him a lot of water. So I don't know what amount of water they get from that vegetation, but it's a lot of water on top of the 200 liters that they drink a day. Then you have your ruminants, things like impala and wildebeest, who have a digestive system that is geared to taking water out of the food that they eat, and they have to drink much less. In some cases, ruminants like steenbok and gemsbok or oryx don't even need to drink. Their digestive systems are so good they don't even need to drink. Me, on the other hand, out here at the temperatures that we get here, we evaporate 2 liters of water a day just by breathing and by moving normally. And generally speaking, we are drinking between, not always, some days beer and whiskey definitely substitutes the water I'm supposed to have, but we should be drinking about 4 liters of water a day. So I weigh 80 kilograms, 160 pound, and I need to drink about 4 liters of water a day here to keep me concentrating normally and to keep me functioning and not dehydrated. Now, I hope that answers your question. I didn't give you a definitive answer there, but at least it'll help you figure out an answer all for yourself. Now, we've come down here because A, I want to see what it looks like. I haven't been here in months. And B, it's always quite an interesting area. There's always things happening around this place. Now, this is a tamboti tree just growing basically on its own. And tamboti trees are good for wood carving. Their wood is used in expensive jewelry carving. And what's immediately apparent for me on this particular piece of wood is the fact that I'm noticing borer beetle holes. Now, tamboti trees are actually toxic. Their sap is poisonous, their wood is poisonous, to the degree that even making fire with this wood will make a person like you and me sick. And yet, there's an insect that is boring into this, the larvae, which is eating the wood. And I do not know what that is. It's actually going to be very interesting for me to go home today and find out what beetles actually have larvae that can eat tamboti wood. Not only is it incredibly hard, but it is also toxic. And so me looking at this piece of wood, it's just been like a wow moment. Like, what is going on over here? You can see definitely an insect boring into that wood. Is busy. It's gone right in there. I mean, I'm not going to go and dig it open. It'll take me forever. This wood is incredibly hard. You can see my knife barely even scratches the surface, and this is just the outside bark. I haven't even gotten to the heartwood yet. But it's a lovely wood to use in wood carvings, in inlays. It's got very fine grained texture. Nothing here that I can show you. It's very hard. Let me show you the grainy texture. So the easiest way to actually show you how fine grained this wood is to take a knife and to shave away the wood slightly, which gives it an almost polished look, and you can actually see the grain of the wood starting to come out. Now, for those of you who are interested in wood carving and woodwork, you would instantly recognize the value in having those stripy patterns in an inlay on a table or piece of jewelry. Jewelry boxes were quite often inlaid with this wood, and another reason, not only is it very beautiful, but another reason is that shavings of this wood thrown into a fire keep mosquitoes away and flies away. Very good insect repellent. And then slivers of this material, in other words, bigger slivers like that, put between clothes, keep away fish moths. So winter clothes that you store in storage, slivers of this wood that you put between your clothes will actually be a deterrent for fish moths. And it's because the wood is so toxic. Now, I always enjoy smelling this. The other word for a tamboti tree, the other common name for a tamboti tree is the African cedar. And that, I'm sure for you have cedar trees growing where you live, have an idea of what we're talking about there. Andrew trying to implore to those of you who are in the sciences, make a scratch and sniff TV screen so that you can smell what I'm smelling. And he's serving to stick his camera into a position where you could probably have seen the sun through my nostrils. Now let's carry on. Having a look at that wood and talking about the fish moths, Siberia, our Zumi, has asked, do we get cockroaches? And yes, absolutely, we get lots of cockroaches here. We get even hard-shelled cockroaches. But before I finish answering that, I'm going to be setting a challenge here. We're going to go into the open. You're running quickly because it is a lilac-breasted roller that's going to roll for us. Come here, Andrew. Now, we're going to watch that bird quite carefully. And with the luck we've been having today, there's a good chance that that bird just flies away and never comes back. But let's see what he does. It's a lilac-breasted roller, and I'm hoping that he's going to gain some height, and he's going to show you why we call it a roller. So here he comes back. He's got some height. Busy watching him there, making a screeching noise. Definitely not a pretty sound when you look at how pretty the bird is. Now what he's doing is, there he goes, there he goes. There we go. And he goes again. And that is why we call that bird a roller. Well done, Mr. Andrew. Yay, got that done. Alrighty, well done, Andrew. Now you get a few rollers out here. You get the purple roller, which is bigger than that, and then you get the lilac-breasted roller. And then right in the north of the park, you also get broad-billed roller as well. I've had the pleasure of seeing them, and it's always a treat when you see a bird that is uncommon. For some or other odd reason, you feel like you've achieved something. Are we quickly going to cross this drainage line, and then we're going to see what's on the other side there. Oh, here we have the first hibiscus. Now, for those of you who garden, this isn't a spectacular flower because you're used to it. But to be honest with you, it's one of the most spectacular flowers when you actually get close to looking at it. That yellow color is a common color to have out here, but have a look at that deep rose red that is on the inside of these petals. I mean, it's just an absolutely fantastic color. Almost looks like it's had red lipstick melt on the inside of it over there. Incredible. So this is the hibiscus. It's a hibiscus that's endemic to this area. It only grows here. And although not as showy as the tropical hibiscuses that you can now cultivate in your garden, is a pleasure to behold here. I'm still carrying on with the idea of walking from termite mound to termite mound here. I enjoy it. We haven't seen anything. Andrew and I have been waiting to see if we're going to get some mammals here, but haven't even heard anything here. Not a zebra, not a wildebeest, not even an impala. Nonetheless, we're going to keep on trying. Andrew's requested that I show him a snake this morning, so I'm busy scanning while we're busy walking. I'm busy scanning for any telltale signs. Having been quite a cold day yesterday and quite a cold night last night with the rain that we've been having, it's not an unusual it wouldn't be unusual to expect the fact that some snakes would be lying out in the open, just getting warm again, trying to increase their body temperature to a point where they can carry on to metabolize the food that they need to, or whatever they've got in their belly, or whatever fat reserves that they've got. So it's not an unusual request. A bit earlier we were asked how big millipedes can get, and this is a big one. I won't take him out, but you can have a look. I mean, he's almost as thick as my thumb. You do get them a bit thicker, and obviously about as long as my hand. So that's not quite a giant millipede, but definitely one of the bigger ones that we found out here. I wasn't going to stick my hand too deep into that cavity there. That is exactly where you can expect to find puff adders and things. So, you watched that millipede react to me just poking it by wanting to roll up, and two different Barbaras on. All right. The purpose of the rolling, it's two different Barbaras on Twitter have asked me what the purpose is for the lilac-breasted rollers making that rolling motion that we just saw. And it's just display. They are gaudy in their colors. They've got that beautiful chest and the blue and the metallic green on their head in some places. They've got a raucous call. They love sitting in the open. And then to top it all off, this male goes and displays with this beautiful calling. He lets everybody in the area know he's going to do it, and then he does this roll. And basically a lot of birds do that as a show of fitness and a show of strength, a show of virility, and it's just a form of reproductive selection. Females will select birds on their ability to be, male birds on their ability to show how strong they are and therefore what good genes they have. And it's very common in birds, especially in areas where birds have access to a lot of food. And in particular here they have access to a lot of food with termites. A lot of termites. You've seen all the termite mounds we've been going towards, and so these birds have enough energy spare in a day to have these massive displays. Now I'm hearing a Klaas's cuckoo in the distance, and although there's another roller over there rolling, you get him? And there you got it. You just got the tail end of another roll over there. So now you've watched two different kinds. You've watched that one where they dive with their wings open, and then now you've just watched as they get down to the ground, they start rocking from back to forth, boom, 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 down to their perch. Nice. Now back to Klaas's cuckoo. And we're going to go and try and find this Klaas's cuckoo that is calling. It is a phenomenally pretty bird, making a noise, and I'm hoping that we can get to show it you. It's a cuckoo that has emerald iridescent green feathers on it, and well worth us trying to find. I'm hearing it calling from there. Not too far away, and because they're iridescent, you can imagine where they like to sit. They're not going to be hiding on the ground, camouflaged like a nightjar would be. They are going to be sitting in the open, in the sun, where their feathers can glitter. And that is exactly what I'm hoping that I can show you, is this absolutely beautiful green and white bird. Whew, the fly flew up my nose, terrible. Alright, now we're getting close to this bird. Now what I'm going to start looking for is a tall tree that offers this bird the chance to display. Now let's go forward a little bit. I think I see him. No, it is a hornbill, but he may have a Klaas's cuckoo next to him. It sounded like he was coming from that tree. Can you see there, Andrew? That far knobthorn there. Definitely a hornbill. Okay, now the Klaas's cuckoo has stopped calling, of course, but it's okay. Let's go down and go and have a look and see if we can get him. Going to be a bit more difficult to find without him calling, but we're going to give it a bash nevertheless. Now we're getting to a point where you see that hornbill there. Ah, Andrew's spotted. Oh, hello.
The aerial.
That is a bark spider. What are you doing? Oh. It's an orb web spider. Andrew has just made his way around and is taking you around the tree so that he doesn't break this web. The spider is right there, looking like a piece of detritus, so that he can camouflage himself, and is quite high up. Ooh, I managed to catch myself on his web. Now what I've gone and done is caught myself up in his web, exactly what we didn't want to go and do. I'm sorry, big guy. Now, he just would have gotten out of the way. He would have realized that I was a little bit too big to catch, and he just would have gotten himself out of the way. But as you can see from that very cryptically designed body, that he relies on camouflage. Now what will happen is he'll come straight down to the web and very quickly possibly even start to repair it. No, he's just come down to the middle. She actually has just come down to the middle, not he. And now has control of the web again, in which case is able to detect movement on any of the strands around the web. Beautiful. Now that Klaas's cuckoo has actually flown away, but what we are going to do is take a loop. Those rollers are going crazy, and I think what they're doing is they are fighting over a prime nesting site. Now, holes in trees, I think I've mentioned it once or twice before, are like prime real estate. They really are hotly contested, and I think what's happening here is we're seeing some rollers busy giving a display for each other or for a female. What I want to do is get into that area so that we can potentially share that with you. The Klaas's cuckoo that we've been following seems to be moving ahead of us, and I don't want to get us into a position where we get so low that the signal dips again. So we like to just stay on this side of the hill. Let's go and see if we can find this roller's nest to go and show you. I can hear them fighting in front of us. Quite an interesting question coming through while I've been walking here, Emily. You've asked me how many times will rollers roll in a display. I've seen them do it 5 or 6 times, but usually it's only around about 2 or 3 times that they roll. But it all depends on how energetic the male is feeling. Okay, that was just Andrew doing his best to impersonate an elephant. Alright, let's see here. What have we got here? Ah, there we have a spotted cuckoo. And he was just busy parasitizing a nest. And that's actually very, very interesting. So we have a spotted cuckoo which has just actually parasitized the nest of a bird. And what I mean by that, there he goes and sits in the tree there. Let me just get an absolute ID on him. For those big birders out there, get ready with your screenshots. He's lying flat on the branch in that tree there. Wow, that is I'm gonna need help to identify this cuckoo, but definitely the spots on the wings, the color, the size of the bird. He's one of the larger cuckoos. I want to say great spotted cuckoo. Now what I mean by parasitize is that cuckoos don't bring up their own babies. They allow other birds to bring up their babies. And cuckoos are also very specific with the types of birds that they parasitize. There, that call, that crest should be diagnostic. It's definitely not a Jacobin cuckoo. That's the other cuckoo that has a crest. It's way too big for a Jacobin cuckoo. Has a creamy yellowish throat and breast. With those spots on the wings, I think is going to help you get an identification, or help me at least to get an identification. For those of you who are quick on the draw and can help us with the ID of this bird, you're welcome to send your answers through to the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or email the questions through to questions@WildEarth, or email the answer at least to questions@WildEarth.tv, and see if we can get an answer to that cuckoo. In the meantime, we're going to carry on looking for these two rollers that are displaying at one another, and as soon as we get the answer, I'll let everyone know what cuckoo that was. Back onto the roller theme, Barbara has just asked me, do rollers ever mess up the roll and crash into the ground? And I'm gathering, Barbara, that you've got some experience with those pigeons that roll. I think they're called rollers, rolling pigeons, who sometimes will crash into the ground if they don't come out of their roll early enough. I've never seen them crash, Barbara. I've also never found a dead roller that looks like he's crashed into the ground. I'm going to have to say no to that. But it's just in my experience that it might well be that you do find rollers that crash into the ground, or at least into trees. Okay, so we're getting this nesting tree now. I can hear the one roller busy calling above us. So let's go and sneak up on this tree and see what we can find. Oh, stepped in a hole there. Not looking where I'm walking. Janine has given us the answer to our cuckoo question, and it was right. It's the great spotted cuckoo. So well done, Janine. Thank you very much for the help on that. Great spotted cuckoo. The next question that I have for everybody is, and potentially Janine you can answer it for us again, is what birds do they parasitize? And that will allow us to find him again. Give us an idea of what bird was nesting in that tree. So what bird birds do the great spotted cuckoo parasitize? Now, that roller has gone very quiet, but I think he's nesting in this tree here. And while we wait for him to finish whatever he's doing, I think it would be a nice idea to go through to James, who has probably got something that he'd like to show you. So we'll catch up as soon as we know what these rollers are doing. See you just now.
Now I'm going to test severely Brian's skills here. I don't know if, Brian, can you pick them up at all? There's a cloud of flying termites.
Yeah.
You see them there? There you can see them, everybody. And some people might find this kind of awful, but I just really love this time of year. After the first big storm and these flying termites come out, it's the culmination of their existence, of their mound. Their colony has finally released, a bit like a Deb's ball, I suppose, if you're a human being, or some such ridiculousness. This is when the royals put on their wings, open them out, and the rest of the mound comes. I'll try and find a mound where it's actually happening. The soldiers and the workers come and they open up an entrance, and there these flying termites take away the hopes, dreams and genetics, of course, of the king and queen of that particular mound, and each of them can potentially be another king or queen of a new mound. And I just find that so exciting, that every single one of these termites that you can see in great swarms all over the place could be royal and could start another mound. These are not the fungus growing termites. They are, they're flying all overhead. I think they're harvested termites, so they don't make the big mounds, but they certainly could become the royals of a new colony. Most of them will end up in the gullet of some kind of predator, frog, bird, something like that. I just think it's one of my favorite things to see out here. Now, of course, the termites don't always stay this size. The females get a lot bigger. And Anna-Marie, you want to know, what do they weigh? I mean, there are lots of different species of termite, of course, so it's very difficult to say what they weigh. In the big mounds, the fungus-growing termite mounds, she's about that big. I don't think she'd weigh much more than, say, 100 grams, which is in power. Now you're severely testing my ability to go into imperial. I don't know how many ounces 100 pounds is, but it's a tenth of a kilogram. Sorry, 100 grams, a tenth of a gram, so it would be, I'm not even going to attempt to work it out for you. So 100 grams, I'm sure you could figure out what that is in ounces. You know how many ounces? There we go, about 300 ounces. How do you work that out? 28 grams to the ounce. Okay, thank you, Brian. 28 grams to the ounce. So there you go. Just over 3 ounces. They're not very heavy, but she's quite big. I mean, she's a half a foot long. I don't know what the queen of those harvested termites looks like. I think she's probably a bit smaller, probably about that big, but very definitely with a hugely swollen abdomen, making eggs and eggs and eggs and eggs all day long. Ooh. That was a blister beetle that I just ducked out the way of. You don't want a blister beetle walking on you because you will become blistered. They produce a toxin called cantharidin, which blisters the skin. It was also, interestingly enough, you've probably been told this many times, used in what was supposed to be an aphrodisiac at one stage, an aphrodisiac called the Spanish fly, you may recall. I've not used it, of course, but what it does is it irritates, that cantharidin will irritate the urinary tract, and because of that people thought it was an aphrodisiac. Actually what they were doing was rendering themselves fairly infertile, I imagine. So you don't want a blister beetle walking out on you, and there are going to be lots and lots of different insects coming out now. We've just seen, Brian said, look at all the dung beetles, and they really are now starting to fly around. It's just such a special time of year, especially when we've got a bit of cloud, so a bit of shade. We're not cooking quite as we would normally. There is Uncle Steph's vehicle. And let's quickly go across to Steph to rolling lilac-breasted rollers. I'll see you now.
All right, now myself and Andrew have come right between these two rollers that we've been hunting, and while we're waiting for them to display, and of course because I want them to display, they're not going to, but while we're waiting for them to display, we've got some flowers over here which are quite nice. So not only do we have the African violet, which is right here, have a look at how pretty that is, to go with that hibiscus that we were looking at a little bit earlier. This is a fairly common plant all over the world at the moment and cultivated for gardens, but this is where it occurs naturally, the African violet. And then we have right here, we have a devil thorn, and although this also gets a nice purpley flower, by far and wide the biggest plus of this tree is the fact that it's full of saponins, and that means that you can actually wash with this tree. Have a look as I crush the leaves, that slimy, can see there the sliminess that comes out. Hold it there. I'm just going to fetch some water out of my backpack. Actually makes it even more slimy.
We've got visitors.
Oh, we've got some visitors. Ah, we've got Mr. James Henry. He's right there on walk. Hello.
Hello. Hello everybody. Andrew, you're filming Steph today. Ryan is filming Steph is perfectly filmable.
So James is just passing over this again. While we're at it, while James is here, I just want to show you these saponins. Now I've mixed a little bit of water into this devil thorn, and you'll notice, have a look at all that. So not only does it make a fantastic shampoo and a soap, it can also be used to cure chafe when you're on a walk. Something that Andrew suffers from immensely as a punishment for him running away. Bye bye. Alright, now that is quite amazing if you think about it, the saponins that are inside of this plant. The devil's thorn, for those of you who are sitting close to information resources, and have a look at that. Incredible, hey? Now you can mix that with any number of sweet smelling plants. I'm going to just wash it off. They actually leave your hands feeling so soft. It's actually incredible. And the local Shangaan ladies over here absolutely use this plant as to wash. Ooh, look at these flowers, are driving me insane. And I'm busy washing it off, and you can see that it washes off quite well. I've got no more slime on my hands. And it leaves your hands squeaky clean. Nice. And we've got some answers from John and Diane, who've managed to get it right for our cuckoo quiz. So that great spotted cuckoo that we managed to film there was parasitizing more than likely a starling's nest, and more than likely it would have parasitized the Burchell's starling's nest. So the biggest cuckoo in the area would have parasitized the largest starling that we have in the area, or the Burchell's starling. Isn't that fantastic? So I just want to say thank you to those of you who decided to participate in that quiz. It was actually quite nice. Learning curve for myself and for Andrew, believe it or not. You know, these things, you always get them in the beginning of the year. You know things, winter comes along and then you forget. But for myself and Andrew, that brings us to the end of our walk today. We've had a fantastic day. I know you've only joined us for half of it, but the half that we did have, I'm glad we shared so much of with you. Now, we will see you this afternoon for the sunset safari. I'm not too sure who's going to be on walk this afternoon. We'll bash it out over breakfast. But in any case, I'd like to say goodbye. Thank you very much. See you later.
And there is Tara's favorite animal, the warthog. Now, for those of you who haven't seen Tara, she doesn't look like a warthog at all, but these are her favorite animals, and they so seldom are this confiding with us. They so often just disappear into the bush at high speed with their little tails sticking up. And that's this sort of youngster, and then there's another adult off just to the side. We're not far from where Steph was, or is, there. Now the adults become aware of us. So let's just sit and see. We don't have long left. We've only got a few minutes left. What has been, to me, a wonderful drive. So let's just spend the last few minutes with these. Oh, there's a whole lot of them. Look at that. Oh, no, very terrified now. Off they go. Isn't that sweet? Just behind the termite mound. One of them's waiting. let's go. We'll see if we can get a little bit closer. I think they'll run away from us. There's an impala around as well. I don't know why warthogs are so terrified of us here. You know, they'll become almost like pets. In some places they'll come onto the lawns of the lodges and they live completely happily with people. We'll just move slowly down here. Just to hoping to just roll forward a little bit. There we can get a last view of them before they may disappear. They are very, very funny. My father had a dog once who I've mentioned before called Trubshaw, a Staffordshire Bull Terrier, and he resembled a warthog most closely. He definitely ate enough to be a warthog. Right, Russell in California, you wanted to know what "ahee" means. When I see people and I go "ahee," it's basically like saying, what would you say in California? I don't know. Out here you might just say "hi, hi," or "how's it," which means "how's it going? How's it going?" That's basically what it means, and that's why it's kind of a shortening of the Shangaan greeting. So formally you would say "avshen," which means good morning, and then somebody else would say "ahee." But you can just shout "ahee" across the bush, and it's a wonderful way to say hello. Right, we've reached the end of the show. Big thank you to Brian.
Thank you, James.
Have a lovely leave, Brian.
Thank you.
To Tara, of course. Louise is leaving us. She's going off to Johannesburg again. Thanks, Jerry. Thank you to Steph. And to Andrew, also going on leave. You could see how excited he was. We'll see you this afternoon at 4 o'clock. Until then, stay safe and happy. Bye-bye.